You are not your actions. We all screw up. We all have regrets. We all wish we hadn't done certain things. But to my mind, every single person who is listening today, who will ever listen, is a unique spark of the divine. That is in you. I don't care if you are homeless on the street, if you are in a big mansion, it doesn't make any difference. One of the principles is see the divine essence in everyone. What I would suggest everyone do, as best you can where you are, is just entertain the possibility that things could be different.
Thanks for tuning in to the Elevation Recovery Podcast, your hub for addiction recovery strategies, hosted by Chris Scott and Matt Finch.
Welcome to the show. This is Matt Finch presenting you with episode 196. And in this episode, I interview Diane Haworth, who's the founder of the Be Love Principles at beloveprinciples.org, a heart-centered success coach, speaker, author, and host on the Awake TV network. And without further ado, let's now talk to Diane. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be here, Matt. Thank you.
We got a mutual friend, Melissa, who's your best friend, and That's a really cool best friend to have. Melissa Fike, who's been on here twice. She was my coach, and you and I had met at Brendan Burchard's High Performance Academy seminar several years ago, and now my guess is that, like Melissa, you've got a bunch of different certifications, schoolings, trainings, but now you're focused on this new project, this new kind of niche, which we'll get into. But first, let's build a backstory to how did you get into the profession, or at what point in your life did you realize you wanted to help people or you wanted yourself to grow? I'm guessing something happened in your life and that changed you and it led you on this path to where you're at now.
You know, I appreciate the question. Thank you. I actually think I'm like a lot of people. My life was a hot mess. And what I was doing was not working. So I really started to search. Like, I just wanted to understand this whole life thing. And I tell people I listened to Oprah, I went to church, I took the self-development, I did everything I knew to do. But it wasn't until really I found meditation that led to what I call that journey within, helped me connect to my own inner divine wisdom. And that's that wisdom that you and I share, and we share with everyone who will ever listen to this podcast. But once I started to understand that and be guided from there, that's when my life started to change. I had healthier relationships. I was happier. I was physically healthier. I just was experiencing people like our beautiful friend Melissa, right? That's the kind of person that I was attracting. So it was really that lifelong struggle to try to figure out what was missing. And just like in The Wizard of Oz, what I needed was what's always there, Matt. It was always there.
At what age did you find meditation? My parents, I think, have been meditating for like 45 years together too. Together meditating. They met some guy from India named Prem Rawat. Wow. Again, like probably almost like 45, somewhere around there years ago. And they do it every morning. When did you come into meditation? At what age or what decade was it? Or was it kind of in the last 10 years?
No, actually, it's been over 25 years, but it was kind of funny. I'm in a tiny little town in Virginia, about 50 miles southwest of Washington, D.C., but it's just still a tiny, tiny little town. And I had been going to regular church because that's what we did, right? You get married, you have kids, you go to church, that's what you do. And our minister started talking about meditation. Now, this was in the 90s when we didn't have a yoga studio. The preliminary thinking here was that only weirdos meditated and there wasn't any white flowing robed people sitting on mountaintops. That's just not what we did. But the minister started a small group of people who were interested in learning something called, he called it silent meditation. And it was life changing. And I was probably in my late 30s. So it's, yeah, my late 30s probably.
So I'm in Southern California, and I grew up with, kind of these new age hippie
Yeah.
meditators, and they ran a herb school out of their home with herbs and meditation classes and angel healings and aromatherapy. So this was bizarre to all my friends and peers. It was very normal growing up like
Yeah.
this. How random for you to be in Virginia, of all places, in the 1990s at a church. So that is a really interesting place to find something like that. And you, like so many people, when you first got into it, was it difficult or was it hard, or did it just click right away? Because a lot of people will try meditation and they just it's too hard, or it's not, meditation's not for me, but they don't really even give it a real try.
I have to say I was so desperate. I was in a really abusive relationship. I was physically not healthy. I so desperately wanted to stop all the voices in my head that were fearful, that was just trumpeting those sounds of stress and overwhelm, that I was really ready to do anything.
Mm.
And I really trusted this minister that was bringing this. I was not. If somebody needs pharmaceuticals, that's a decision everybody can make. For me, I did not want to manage my stress that way. I wanted to find something more a gentler approach and something that I could sustain throughout my life. So when I decided that this was something I was going to try, it was really like I got led there. It seemed really very natural. It wasn't I can't say I was an expert meditator the first couple times I tried it, but I did go in a group. So that was nice. You had support of the group. And what was really unusual, at least for our little town and certainly for our church, is not only did we start embracing this idea of silent prayers, what they called it, but I actually taught it as a Sunday school class for a few
Mm.
years, which was really something unusual. And now, of course, meditation is everywhere. There's so many people who understand not only the psychological benefits, but the physical benefits. But I just tell everybody it's what saved my life. I really believe it did. It just helped me make better decisions because instead of being so attached to my fears, I really was able to hear that inner guidance. And that's when everything in my life changed.
Oh, that's so cool. And sounds like in the past, your thinking was probably neurotic a lot of the time, fearful, lack consciousness, maybe some victim mindset in there, which so many Americans go through until they find it on their own or someone else leads them to a better way of living. And this is a great way of living, to where every single day you're not just acting out of fear and reaction. It's more love centered, heart centered. It's more congruent with living with your values. And it's once you live in the way that you're living, there's no going back to the old lifestyle. And if someone does go back into that, it's got to be horrible to slip back into that. So now let's proceed into the stuff about love. And you've got the Awake TV show
Mhm.
and so many cool things going on. So talk about now, please, what it is that you actually do. What's the kind of theories behind it? What are some of the strategies, therapies? How do you help people? I know you've seen addiction too, and you've heard from, I remember you were saying that you've helped some people deal with stuff. And as a residual effect of that, it helped them to have more compassion and non-attachment to their spouse or another family member that was struggling through an addiction, correct?
Exactly. And we've had addictions in my own family, by the way.
Mm.
So this is not something that I am unfamiliar with. I'm very familiar with this and the toll it takes on the family and the community as a whole, as well as the person who is struggling with the addictions. So this idea of coming from love, it wasn't anything that I grew up with. This was not,
Mhm.
it wasn't normal. And I can tell you, my family doesn't necessarily think I'm normal right now, Matt.
Mhm.
They're just used to me, I guess.
Mhm.
But what I kept finding was whenever I tried to figure something out, I mean, I would make progress, but it was when I really learned how to relax into that wisdom of my own heart. And to me, that is the energy of love. Some people call it God, universe, source. I think of it as the intelligent, creative, expansive energy that creates galaxies, that beats your heart and mind. So if this love is intelligent, and I mean, look around, look at the natural world, look at the galaxies. If it can create that, it can certainly help me with my pitiful little life, was what I thought at the time.
Mhm.
So I kept finding ways to go back to that center of love. Meditation was pivotal way to do that, right? Because that
Mhm.
stopped everything that you just reiterated. Yeah, that was me. Just so much going on in the head. And it was so fueled by fear. I know now in retrospect. At the time, I just thought it was life, but I realize now. And I also really want to say that you absolutely hit the nail on the head. When you're in those kinds of chaotic situations, you don't see a way out. You think that's what life is. And when you can shift to this different way of being or looking at the world, it's like being released from a cage when you never knew you were in the cage in the first place. To me, there is such freedom. And it's a freedom from the fear, the overwhelm, the uncertainty. Now, things you and I know things still happen in your life, but it's so much easier to face a challenge when you are looking through the lens of love, is the way that I language that. So I started like my friend Melissa. Matter of fact, Melissa and I met because she was one of my teachers on a modality years ago. So I started learning all these energy modalities because I'm not a scientist, I'm not a therapist or a medical professional, but I know the difference between the energy of fear and the energy of love. And I also know the energy that I would see in my loved ones that were struggling with addiction. And that was, I need to escape. Their energy was, how can I escape this life? I don't know how to deal with it.
Mhm.
So I, was observing all these things. And over a period of time, coaching and learning and exploring and just I kept asking, what is the next thing? How am I here to serve? I think we're all here to serve in some way. And I think every single way is important, by the way. And about 3 years ago, I started to just pray because I pray all the time, but I would pray, just show me how to serve, show me how to serve. And I have a journaling practice. And if that's not something that your listeners to, man, I think that's fantastic. And one
Mhm.
of the things that I journal every day, I write whatever's on my mind. And the last entry that I make for the day is a question. And it's, love, what would you most have me know today? And again, love is God, spirit, that energy, that intelligence that runs our lives, or that is available for us if we tap into it. And I just write whatever comes through. So I had gotten some wonderful guidance that way.
Mhm.
I also use biofeedback techniques, some heart math techniques, but they're all designed to help people get in touch with their own truth and to really live from that guided place. Now, you and I know when people are dealing with illnesses, there are some special challenges with that, but it's all possible.
Mhm.
To my mind, there's no illness, there's no addiction, there's no circumstance that's greater than love. The energy of love, not the love that we typically think. When you use the word love, people will either think you're talking about romantic love, or I love my kids, I love my dog, I love my slippers. In our society, we just have so many names, or we use love in so many ways, right? Love of
Mhm.
attachment, love of affection. I'm talking about the big love, that intelligent energy that can guide us. And it was 3 years ago tomorrow, actually. I was asking that question I was actually in a conference, and it was a group exercise. that we were to go inside and ask, love, what would you have me know today? And I had a full bodied experience. I call it a direct divine download. I had a vision, I heard things, I experienced things. And what the response to my question was, love, what would you have me know today? I heard, be love. And I was given 4 ways to do that. And that's been my life's mission now, is to serve, helping people understand that if we want to be the change we have to be the change we want to see in the world, right? We want more love in the world. What have we heard for the last several years? We need more love. But how do you do that exactly? When you're hurt, when you're confused, when you're ill, how do you do that? So this is one template that helps people connect to the actions that you can take in this physical form to be more love.
I love it so much, so much. I knew this was going to be really
Oh,
fun for me because I always get to learn so much from guests, and you came uh, highly praised by Melissa. So, of course, I knew it was going to be awesome. And I had met you. I also want to say that one of the quotes that I have up in the hallway right here says, I forget who it's by, but strive not to be a success, but rather to be a value. And that one was a huge game changer. Whenever I started to, instead of trying to be successful and like, how can I, get the things that I want? Now the daily mantra is, how can I add value? How can I serve? And it's just everything else seems to naturally work out when you're focused on serving and building yourself. And I mean, there's a lot of things to it, but it took me a long time. I want you to know too that even with Melissa's my coach, I had so much work to do that the lasting, really deep, powerful, full on shifts took some time. And so, how can people start to even make that shift as far as, so if they're addicted, which a
mhm.
lot of people listening to this podcast are now, a lot of people are actually in recovery or they've quit things and they're just, maybe they've quit one substance, but they're still using something else. So many different scenarios. But from that state of someone that has an addiction where their brain chemistry
Yeah.
is really has negatively changed, it's hard to feel that love when substances hijack your brain chemistry. They're using the drugs to try and get those feelings. And it's like this never ending hole in there. So with that, what are some simple things people could do? I mean, meditate. Should people meditate if they're on alcohol or drugs, or what are some steps people can do? My always tip is to feel love, give love.
Yeah.
But when someone's in a really bad spot, it's like you almost need to be forced to.
Well, and you and I know you can't force anybody, right? I mean, you can
Mhm.
try.
Mhm.
One of the things, and again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical or mental health professional, but one of the things that I have seen in my own family and in my clients and students is when you can stop and take a breath, which sounds simple, but I know sometimes it's not when you are in the flow of an addiction or you're in the flow of an episode or an event, right? But if you can hear what I'm telling you right now, and if you're listening to this podcast, then you're obviously opening the door. And I want to say how much I appreciate you, Matt, for doing that, by the way. You are not your actions. We all screw up. We all have regrets. We all wish we hadn't done certain things. But to my mind, every single person who is listening today, who will ever listen, is a unique spark of the divine. That is in you. I don't care if you are homeless on the street, if you are in a big mansion, it doesn't make any difference. One of the principles is see the divine essence in everyone. And let me just give you this whole process. What I would suggest everyone do as best you can where you are is just entertain the possibility that things could be different, that things could be different. The first principle in the Be Love principles is to see everyone with an open heart without an agenda. Now, when I work with folks who have addictions or who have addicted folks in their family, right? Or in their businesses, however that is, everybody's got an agenda. If you're the addicted person, your agenda is I'm screwed up, I'm addicted, and you're going to do that. If you're the person in the family that is judgmental, then your agenda is I'm going to make sure I tell them how screwed up they are. None of that is coming from love. I would really encourage every single person to go to a mirror, look in their own eyes. As painful as that might be, look in your own eyes. Put your hand on your heart, because your consciousness goes wherever you touch your body. I don't want you here. That's where your stories are. Your heart is where that divine wisdom is. Put your hand on your heart and just say, show me how to see my own divine essence. Show me how to greet myself with an open heart, without an agenda. They would even do one of those. Just show me how to see myself with an open heart, without an agenda. If you did that once a day for 10 days, do you know what a shift would occur? Because I don't, because I've seen it. It's incredible. And it's not incredible because this is my process. This is incredible because love is incredible. Love is what always heals us. Always. Always. The rest of those principles they don't get harder, but they get a little different. You see people with, or yourself, with an open heart without an agenda, then you strive to see the divine essence in everyone. That third principle is forgive quickly, completely, and unconditionally. And I would say that when we are able to forgive ourselves, we're able to forgive the world. And that is where that key gets into the lock to unlock our cage. And that final principle is to remember you never left the light. And by that, I believe in the oneness. I believe we are all connected. I believe that anytime any of us has the courage or the hope to take one step toward healing, it absolutely helps heal us all. The world needs a lot of healing right now. So, any of us that steps up and says, I'm going to heal, even if it's just a tiny little bit today, you are actually impacting not only yourself, your family, your community. This is so much bigger than we realize. This is just so much bigger than we realize.
And the stuff that you're teaching, your system is, yeah, it's not just for people with addiction. It is for the whole world.
Yep.
And there's a lot of hatred right now. There's so much polarization and also tribalism, us versus them,
Yep.
cynicism. And I'm just glad that I'm not in the middle of all of it, because if this was even 5 years ago, I would have been totally just deep in it and pissed off and angry and fearful and blah, 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 blah. So these are great. And it's so funny because a lot of the stuff we talk about on here is like supplements and, psychology, nutrition, a lot of things. We've talked about topics about love and stuff, but nothing as deep into it as this. So I want to go deeper into this system that you have. But first, let's talk about the actual vibration of love, because you were bringing up some things that I learned many years ago about there's different frequencies, I guess, of love, and then boredom and, anger, resentment. There's like this chart. So anyone that's thinking this stuff, oh, airy fairy, I'm pretty sure it's actually very scientific, and they've documented this in the Heart Math Institute, places like that. There's a lot of research. So regarding vibrations, if somebody is during the day getting everything they can done toward their goals, but they have like a bad vibration, maybe they're pissed off doing it, or they're bored, or they're resentful, but they're taking action to make their life better, but they're not making much progress. They just keep being stuck.
Yeah.
Melissa taught me nothing changes until your energy changes.
Yep.
And I was like, because I was always lack consciousness regarding finances. She's
Mhm.
like, with that mindset, the universe is never going to give you money. You keep saying there's not enough money.
Yeah.
The universe is just magnetizing not enough money to you. So this love, living from this place of love, it's kind of like the meta habit to make everything else in life easier. You just do this one practice that you're teaching this system. If your vibration is vibrating at love throughout the day, oh man, so that means the fruits of your physical labors and actions are probably going to have much more reward for what you put into it, correct?
That's what I've experienced. It's what my clients experiences. And you actually really have a great point. There was some work done a few years ago by a gentleman, a psychiatrist, I believe, or psychologist named Dr. David Hawkins. And what David Hawkins did in a book called Power versus Force was that he applied energetic values to emotions. So, and what he found was if you look at a curve like this, right? Lower emotions that were 199 or below. Again, this is the energetic chart that he created. That would be blame, guilt, shame, anger, fear. One of the things that he found out about those energies were that it actually kept us stuck in this part of the brain because we were in survival, right?
Mhm.
What he found, which was so fascinating, was if you could get, and everybody here can, by the way, get to the energy, it was 200 on his chart, of courage or hope.
Hmm.
That is the doorway to love, peace, bliss, enlightenment. That actually also accesses this part of the brain that gives you um, broader thinking capabilities. That's where your strategic thinking. So, literally, my mom used to say she'd get so mad she couldn't think straight. That was true.
Hmm.
It's just think of all the circuits being like screwed up, right? In your brain. You get so mad, you get so upset. There's such a chemical dump in your brain that you can't think straight. And if someone has some other chemicals floating around in there from medications or addictions, then it just makes a little bit more of a challenge. Not a challenge that you can't overcome, but something to be more mindful of for this particular process that, and again, it's just one of many that helps get you in love.
Mhm.
What I have found is there's a technique, and I'm happy to share it with you. It's one of the exercises that I think I have it on my website, and lots of stuff on there is free, by the way. What I have people do is sit comfortably, and I don't care if I've got a 4-year-old grandson, I've taught him how to do this.
Mhm.
So, whoever you are, wherever you are, you can sit comfortably, shut your eyes, don't be driving a car, obviously. Have
Hmm.
your hands nice and comfortable, and just imagine you are light sitting in light. Light sitting in light. I imagine my cells starting to flood with golden light so that they are really singing to the song of source. And then I see myself in a beautiful column of light. You're just light sitting in light. Can you feel that vibration change, Matt?
Soon as you
Yeah.
soon as you said the last part,
Yeah.
all up here.
It's amazing. I got goosebumps just talking about it.
Mm.
One of the things that I wanted to share, is it okay if I share about that study that I did?
Please, please talk about anything and everything you want about. Yeah, please.
Well, I think it's important because I absolutely agree that most of us, myself included years ago, would have thought, yeah, love, that's cool, but I have real problems. And as soon as I get these real problems figured out, then I'll hop on your love train. And of course, I'm saying get on the train right now, right?
Mhm.
Get on the love train right now because it is powerful. It is changes you energetically. It has helped me physically. It has helped some of my clients physically. And one of the things that I was guided to do was to create a case study. Now, Matt, I went to school in the last century, okay? I don't sit around doing case studies. I don't know how to do a case study, but I was literally guided to do this. And this was, I put it together December 2019, which, if you remember, we didn't have any idea what was going to be going on then. And I had a small group of people that agreed to use the Be Love principles 5 out of 7 days of the week. That's it for 3 months. That's all it was. I had a couple, maybe four or five little 20, 30-minute Zoom sessions. I gave them very little instructions because what I wanted to do was see how they experienced the work. What ideas did they come up with on how they were going to use these principles? After we started, I did say things like, for the next month, I want you to really use the principles with your relationships. For the next month, use them with your health. So I gave them that kind of direction, but it was really very, very small. What I did do was create a survey that I gave them pre and post study, right? And then every week during the study on Sunday nights, they would send me this little, what I called a rating sheet. So they rated on a scale from 1 to 10 these different areas of their life. And they could give me information if they wanted to, if they wanted to write a little note. This was where I found out how many people in the study were actually dealing with addicted family members when they were writing these things out. And somebody in the study also was dealing with addiction, but they had a job. I didn't know this. I didn't know this until it came through. What happened was at the end of 3 months, we took a little break, and then I did the post evaluation, maybe a month after that, because I wanted to see how they did it. Now, before I give you these results, I just want to remind everybody, this is first quarter 2020. So we're just like, la, 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 we're going to do a love study. Everything's cool, right? It's January, and it's like, okay, that's pretty cool. And then February, we start to hear some stuff. And then by March, here in Virginia, we were going on lockdown. Like, we were looking at New York. I'm only a few hours from New York, right? DC is not that far from New York. And we were watching Seattle, and we were watching New York. And I was actually supposed to be in Italy in April. So that obviously got canceled. So nobody knew what was going on. And the people in this study had every issue that everybody else had. They had money trouble, and they had health issues, and they were mad at their mom, and their kids were messing up, their life issues. But what I found when I looked at the data, everybody had individual results. But as a group, I still think this is so cool. As a group, over that 3-month period, their self-love rating increased by 14%. Now, to me, that's pretty impressive.
During the pandemic lockdown.
Yeah, hon, yeah. That was their group. That as a group, that's how these things increase. I thought that was amazing. Their happiness rating increased by 14%. Now, some of these were women who had all of a sudden kids at home that they basically had to homeschool with no notice. They didn't know anything about that. Some of them had elderly parents in nursing homes that they suddenly couldn't see. Some of them had friends and relatives that were either having babies that they couldn't be there for, or had parents who were dying, and they were not able to be there for that. And still, their happiness rating went up 14%. Their sense of peace, 17% increase as a group. Their life situation, which on the outside world you would think would be kind of crazy, their satisfaction with their life situation increased 17%. Now, these last two are the ones, I think all those are great, by the way. But their sense of connection to the divine increased by 29%.
Wow.
And then this is the one that still gives me goosebumps to read it. Their sense of clarity of who they are and who they're here to be in the world increased by 60%.
Wow.
During a pandemic, your clarity, when I don't know if you guys remember, but nothing out here was clear. But while they were aware of what was going on in the news and what your governor was saying you could do, their GPS went inside. They were now listening to that inner guidance. So that's what love does for people. That's what love does for people. And this is such a different group. The group ranged from 37, I think, was our youngest one, and our oldest one was probably 73. Some were working, some weren't working, some had been retired. I mean, these are just regular people. It's not like they were not coaches, they were not healers, they weren't anything like that. This is what love does. This is what love does.
All those are very statistically significant, and especially, I think you said, their levels of clarity and connection to the divine and their purpose in life 60% more. My guess is that if you did that survey for like a whole year or something, all those other things, their life situation, their happiness, would get up to like 40%, 50%, 60%. Because it's, the clarity and as far as your own life, it seems like that could be easier to jack up really, really quick for a lot of people than I think the pandemic was probably making the situation and the happiness. Otherwise, I think that those would have been even way higher too. It's just so crazy when people start to live like this, but then they'll slip back. And I have a question. I don't think I've ever asked this to anybody.
Okay.
What I've noticed with this type of work
Mm-hmm.
into the things that are kind of invisible, a lot of it, love and emotions and, the heart. How comes it seems like so many more females versus males get into this and get it? Because I'm a male and
Mm-hmm.
I got into it. And had I not, I don't think I ever would have been like full of inner peace and love and happiness, because all of the things that I was learning from, they weren't teaching me this stuff, or at least not in the deep way that I needed to go deep. I needed to work with a really good coach. That's why Melissa just came into my life. It was perfect for that.
Yeah.
But a lot of guys, I see so many guys that could really benefit from this type of stuff. In my opinion, it doesn't make you less masculine or less of a man to get into this. I think it makes you more like, it's just helps you to nurture both, because everyone has some masculine and some feminine.
Yep.
I like to be able to just be as complete of a person as I can. And if you're focused on success and climbing to the top and kicking butt, but you're not focused on love, you're missing the whole point of everything, right? That's what it was for me.
I think you bring up a couple really good points. First of all, I think there might be some differences in cultures. I know some of the Eastern cultures, it's much more acceptable for men to be spiritually, or at least it used to be spiritually aware. Let's put it that way. I also think there is something about timing, right? I think that this last century was just very male oriented in that it was the success, and we got to do this and we got to do that, and we have to produce. And you know what? If some of those things hadn't occurred, we would not be able to speak on a program 3,000 miles away. So I honor a lot of that ingenuity and success that people have had. But one thing we have found, and it was so interesting, I just listened today to a final speech by Steve Jobs. And one of the things he said was, look, what difference is success and money? And if you're driving a $150,000 car or a $30,000 car, if you don't have people to love you. Right. And of course, he died very young of pancreatic cancer. It's just so interesting to me. I think one of the wonderful things about being alive now is that there are guys like you that say, hey, let me tell you why you want to live this way. Let me tell you what it's done for me. And I am now seeing men's groups, men's spiritual support groups pop up. I don't remember seeing that before. certainly not in my little town. I think that that is really important. I think that you have such more of a variety of ways to be introduced to the work as well as just be able to access it differently. But to speak to why are more women doing it, I think it's just they're possibly in our American culture more willing to be seen. I think there's a lot of guys reading A Course in Miracles in the closet. I think there's a lot of guys, listening to what their wives are doing and like, okay, well, I'll meditate, but we're not going to tell anybody about it. I'm thrilled that you grew up with parents that meditated together, and that was like not a big thing for you. Yay for you. That wasn't the experience here in this area, but it's becoming more of the experience now. That's encouraging. I also think sometimes the women, perhaps, if our nature has a lot to do with nurturing, this is a way we nurture ourselves, we nurture our family. And I think that as men are beginning to understand, and women, by the way, that we not only need to revere the divine feminine, but the divine masculine within each of us. That's important. That's important. We need both of those. That's one of I do a little stretching routine every morning where I welcome the divine feminine and I welcome the divine masculine because we need both of those, I think, to live a satisfying, loving life. The fact that so many corporations and companies now have meditation rooms, right?
Wow.
That's fantastic. That certainly wasn't the case when I first, got my job God knows how many years ago. Yeah, but it's so apparent now, and you have so many. You even have apps on your phone for Pete's sake. So if somebody felt funny about it, he could like go in his car and listen to his app and meditate at lunch if he wanted to. So I do think it's opening up. I do think it's opening up.
And part of that, the timing, which everything you were saying regarding the last century makes perfect sense. And then right now we're at the precipice of what's the thing we're doing? Not the awakening. I forget what Melissa called it. It's
She calls it the ascension.
the ascension. So we're going into this new thing right now, this new phase. That's probably where there's going to be a lot more of that, right? A lot more waking up. A lot more people waking up.
Well, my opinion is this whole last year, 2020, right, was kind of like a giant snow globe, and we all got shook up. We all got shook up. So I don't know of anyone in my circle who thinks we're going to go back to the way it was. I think people recognize after this kind of global shakeup that things are going to be different. And we've all had a chance to look at our lives and go, wait a second, what is important to me? What do I need? Here in this area, used to be, gosh, when I had a job here in my little town, half of the county commuted to DC to work every day. Half.
Wow.
So we've got one of the top 3 worst traffic issues in the country. Well, now people are thinking, well, wait a minute. First of all, we already proved I don't really have to be at work 5 days a week. And what does that do for my mental health to not be spending? It would be nothing for people to spend 3 hours, an hour and a half going and coming back, right?
Oof.
So that's like an extra job. So now they've realized, well, wait a minute, what can I do with that? I think because there was obviously a lot of stress during the pandemic, obviously, a lot of people turned to meditation and to supplements and to healthier eating habits and to looking, if I am going to be home, how am I going to make this? How am I going to make this a happier place? How am I going to be happier in this place? So I think there are many doors opening, but it's my belief that is always our choice if we walk through. But I really believe what I said before, the more of us who choose love moment by moment, day by day, it's like we all have a more loving, happier, satisfying, more connected experience.
And what you were talking about earlier too, how it improves your physical health too.
Yeah.
It That's what I've noticed. I'm like, holy moly, for so many years I was obsessed about supplements and diet and exercise. I still love those things a lot, and they're
Yep.
key parts for my physical and mental health. But back then I just had no idea just how powerful things like loving with my bird, and I put her in
Oh.
my little armpit right here. So right now when she comes down here, oh, and I just focus on love. I do this probably 30 times a day.
Oh.
I give her showers almost every evening, and my girlfriend and I play a lot with her. We've got an 11-year-old daughter too. So, back in the day, just a few years ago even, I had this bird and I had a daughter and everything, but I wasn't like leveraging the things around me that could boost love and, as a result, physical and psychological health. I wasn't using it nearly enough. Now that I realize just how good it makes you feel and just how healthy and energized, and you can stay that way for a lot of the time. Now that's like my biggest strategy is 10-second hugs with my girlfriend. We'll put papaya in between us
Oh.
and then we'll hug her together. We do this stuff all day. And as a result, I'm saturated in love. Now, if the bird went away, the girlfriend went away, the kid went away, of course I'd have to find other things. But what I've learned is not to be attached to things, because things do disappear, and that's just like, I don't want, if everything disappears, then I need to learn how to live again. Like, oh, no, I need to learn. So really the main thing is enjoy the things that are here, be so grateful, and then just know that they could be gone someday. So enjoy them while they're here. And then if and when they do go, don't be attached to it. Oh, I can never be happy again. One other thing, and then I want to make sure people can find out where to
Oh.
find you, how they can work with you, what your free things are,
Mhm.
and what your paid things are too. A lot of my clients that do the guided meditations or do that kind of thing,
Yeah.
those are the ones that just make the most huge progress. They seem to be the ones that just are in the best psychological space, is people that are either meditating or doing guided meditations so they can listen to someone else do it for them. And another thing I wanted to say before we get into where people can find you is the first seminar I went to was Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within.
Wow.
And yeah,
You started at the top.
yeah, I really did. It's funny. And it was the seminar that changed everything.
Wow.
But one of the things there was, I think it was actually Joseph McClendon on the second day there, who he's great too.
Mhm.
And he was saying the way that you really learn a new skill, really make some progress and go after it, is to, number one, have an idea of how you want to change. Number two, either develop a system, or better yet, find a system that has worked for other people. And if you can do it, model that system. So then you know what you want, or at least close to it. You've got a system to work with. And then to have like full immersion, which was what that 4-day seminar was, full immersion into a subject matter. And then after the immersion, kind of repetition over time, like continued repetition, total immersion, then continued repetition. And that I found that to work great. So what I want to advise anyone listening and watching to do is go to your website and immerse in all the content on there and start from there, because I was on your website and it's phenomenal. There's
Oh.
so many great things. So what is your website? What are some of the best places for people to check out on there? Your TV show, etc.
Well, thank you for all of that. Um, and I love that you've got that kind of training. And I do want to mention that one of the things that works with this is remembering that the love you have for your girlfriend and your bird and for your daughter, it's all being fueled from the inside. And we all have that fuel inside of us.
Mm-hmm.
So this is all about remembering to just stoke the flame that you already have. That's it. You just stoking it.
Love it.
That's it. You just turning up the pilot light. That's the way I look at it. So I would
Mm.
love for people to come see me. I'm on Awake TV. I have a show called Practical Spiritual Tools because I am very practical. I like just give me the list, let me check it off, tell me how to do things. In our industry, this is about being love, but I find that the way I can get there is by having tips, tools, techniques, and to me, the Be Love principles are what's really worked for me and my clients. So they can go to beloveprinciples.org. They can also go to Diane Hayworth, DianeHaworth.com. I also have a free Facebook group where I do free lives, do a teaching every Thursday. I've got a monthly program that has a topic per month. This month we're on mystics, how to cultivate your own inner mystic. And I also have group coaching and some limited spots for individual coaching. Thank you for asking.
Woohoo! That sounds awesome. So I
Thank
would
you.
encourage for anyone watching or listening, go check out these resources. They're phenomenal. She's the real deal. We're so lucky to have her. I feel like one day, maybe in the near future, in a few months perhaps, it'd be fun to do a session with myself, my co-host Chris Scott, and you and Melissa, and have a topic we could all tackle together.
How
Because,
fun.
yeah, the most we've done is 3, and I want to start doing more kind of panels on here about certain things, and you'd be great for that. Thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
on. Your background, everything's so professional, and I learned a lot. I can't wait to re-listen to this. Type up the show notes where people can find all the resources that we talked about. Thank you so much. Have a good one.